Welcome, everyone, to Mythstorie, a podcast about myths and history. I am one of your hosts, Bryant. With me is my permanent guest, Cammy. Hey there, Cammy.
Hey, Bryant.
And Peter, you look really different. No, I'm kidding. We have a new guest, Debby. Debbie, welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome.
OMG.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
So excited. This was Debbie. So Debbie is a friend of Cammy's and a fan of the show. And it's the middle of the day for Cammy and I, but it's like the night for you, Debbie, because you are recording from a special country. Where are you from, Debbie? Where are you right now? What are you doing? Who are you?
I am from Dublin, and you're coming live from Dublin in Ireland right now.
Fantastic. Well, it's very nice to have you on the show. Today we're going to talk about Roman stuff. No, I'm just kidding. That's no. So we've done a couple shows. One of the first shows we did, one of the first 5 shows we did was we talked a little bit about banshees last October, and that was really fun to get into, especially when we talked about like the Irish American kind of evolution of it. And then a couple weeks ago or months ago at this point now, we talked about the children of Lear with the pronunciation help of confirmation from Debbie, because that's fun. And today, Cammy and I are going to butcher more words that we cannot pronounce, but we're going to have someone to really tell us how we're doing it. And that's because today
we'll be giving you marks out of 10.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm worried. Well, I'm not going to screw up her name, because Queen Maeve is who we're talking about. Really fun. Have to just put this out on the table too. The minute you Google it, apparently she's a character in the new show, The Boys. That was really frustrating to wade through all that stuff. The Boys, I'm sure, is a great show, but I'm really sick of. I'm really glad the ads are done because the season's done. I just want to go over that. So, I'll just up front, Queen Maeve. It's based kind of off Wonder Woman. You kind of in the show, in The Boys. We're gonna get behind the real nitty gritty of it all. But yes, so if you're new to Mythstorie, welcome. This is a great episode to start. What we're going to do is we're going to pull a legend, in this case, Queen Maeve. We're going to give you some of the stories and tales of this crazy awesome person. And then we're going to talk about some of the history. We're going to touch a little bit more into the general Irish mythology too, at least I will, a good bit. So, and like we've got an authentic representative of an entire nation here to confirm everything.
The pressure's on.
Yeah.
I should have got my flag.
Well, let us begin. Cammy is going to start us off. Cammy, please regale us with this Irish legend.
Okay, sure. I got my source is Ireland's myths and legends.com, and the cattle raid of Cooley. Is that how you say it, Debbie?
The which?
Cooley? Cooley.
That's it. The cattle raid of Cooley. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Try it in Irish now.
Yeah, I was going to try the Tainbo Wiling. No.
Tainbo Coolin.
Tainbo Coolin. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Mine's going to be shorter because Debbie has quite a bit on Queen Maeve. So she's quite the scholar over there with all of her stuff. So I'll just get right into it. Though Queen Maeve possessed all the power and cunning you would expect from a warrior queen, she was not above friendly boasting and good fun. Maeve was the richest woman in the land, and one night she decided to remind her husband of this. She listed her riches, the vast lands that were under her control, and the hoards of gold she possessed, the fancy clothes that filled her wardrobe. But for every single tangible item Maeve brought up, her husband had something to match it. Whether he was growing tired of the game, or simply trying to win, he brought up something Maeve could not match, a gleaming white bull, a bull to rival any in strength and beauty. She was beat. But instead of letting her husband win, she set out to purchase a bull. Maeve sought out her trusted messenger, Mac Roth, to find one that would beat her husband's. She was pleased to learn that he already knew the location of one such specimen, and it was only a few days' journey from there. He set out to get the bull on loan for Maeve. She asked for it for 1 year in exchange for 50 cows and a large plot of land. The owner agreed to the plan, thinking he had made out with a fortune. He even invited Macroth for dinner with his men to discuss the exact terms of the exchange. During the meal, the farmer heard Macroth boasting to his men that Maeve would have gotten the bull by force if the man had not agreed to release it to her custody. The man was extremely angry and kicked out Macroth and his men and told them to send their queen a message, because the bull could only be taken by force. When Mac relayed the message to Maeve, she gathered her best men and led them into battle, beginning the cattle raid of Cooley.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So
Interesting.
that's like part one essentially here. So there's a lot more for Queen Maeve that's happening. But yeah, the battle, the cattle raid of Cooley is sort of the big one. But Debby, tell us more about Queen Maeve. Let us know what's up with this goddess slash queen.
Woman, with this chick, yeah. Well, these stories, they all go back to like sort of 1st century AD. So that's how long we're talking. And a note on the name. I don't know if, have you guys ever sat down and looked at Irish names and gone, how do you pronounce those?
Yes.
Specifically for the podcast.
Yeah. They're mad. And the name Maeve, the old Irish name is spelling it M-E-D-B, or the M, I think it's M-E Fada. On like in French.
Mm-hmm.
And that name means mead. So Maeve, the anglicized way of spelling the name, M-A-E-V-E. Anyway, Maeve was known as she who intoxicates, because she was not only was named after her mead, obviously the Irish like to drink, and also she was like supposed to be crazy beautiful. So the soldiers all fought for her, not only, you know, for her pride and for their country and all that, because she was a beautiful woman, you know. So at the time, the Tónbo Cúailnge, now Maeve was actually going after the bull that belonged to the bull was known as Finvanach, and it was actually, the story goes that he was originally born into Maeve's herd, but the bull himself didn't like the fact that his owner was a woman, so he went off to her husband's, joined her husband's herd.
Patriarchy.
You know, yeah, she kind of got pulled a little bit. So she went, now Maeve lived in Connacht, and there's a little note there on the provinces of Ireland. There's Ulster, Munster, Leinster and Connacht, and they're, back in the day, they were all the 4 provinces. They're kind of like states. They all had their own kings, they all had their own laws, and Maeve was the queen of Connacht. And the bull that you're referring to, the one that belonged to Dara MacFeachna, he was up in Ulster, and he wanted to buy the bull for twice its worth and all the rest, but refused to sell. And Maeve even offered certain favours to try and get this bull. This is how passionate she was. Yeah. Well, this is how the story goes. That's how the story goes. Can't say for definite. She, as you said, she made it. There was found out that she was going to take the bull, whether they liked it or not. Mm-hmm. So she even went ahead and raised the army and went to forcibly take the bull from your man MacFeachna. So, but there was someone put a debate. Like, this is where the whole mythology comes into it, because we have the mythological hero now, Cuchulainn, coming in, and he was an Ulster hero. Yes. And he held up the army's advance, and he was meant to be our sort of demigod, you know. He was son of one of the Irish gods. So for some reason, Maeve, she kept attacking, and all of her warriors being defeated. And Cuchulainn then demanded a one-on-one combat with Maeve herself. And she had several battles. And he even killed her pets and her handmaidens, and really, 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 really annoyed her. So he does defeat them. And at the end of the battles, all the lands were covered in blood. There were the dead bodies of Maeve's warriors everywhere. And this time she is furious. So she raided the lands herself. She got her bull, and the bull was brought back to Connacht. And after all of this, Maeve is delighted, because this is the whole point of having the bull. She's going to set it on to Aldiel's bull. And they have a fight. And her Maeve's bull then is victorious, and he wins and defeats the other bull. So Maeve eventually got her way. She was eventually the most dominant one in the marriage because her bull won. Although sadly, her bull was mortally wounded, and apparently he wandered around Ireland for dropping pieces of Fionn-Vanach, the bull that he defeated, off his horns, and he created place names all around Ireland by doing this, and then finally returned home and died of exhaustion. It was a bit of a marathon.
Yeah, nice limp. God, that little
yeah. So
suit,
that way, yeah. So Maeve was dominant for a few minutes, but then both bulls sadly ended up dead, and well, at least now they live in an equal household.
Yeah.
That's relationship goals, really.
Yeah.
Well,
there's plenty more. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, I really liked Maeve's story. I didn't know how close you were. I was extremely shocked with how she died. I don't know if that's where you're going next, or if I'm skipping ahead too quick.
Yes. They're well, I mean, nothing really don't think there was anything of huge significance after this massive bullfight, you know.
Right.
But Maeve actually, she lived to be quite old.
Mm-hmm.
She caught her husband, a lover, and had him killed. You know, very passionate woman.
Good for her.
And then, yeah, as Bryant was referring to, she was actually killed by her sister's son, because Maeve killed her sister, his mother, years ago. And this is what Bryant was saying here. This is very, very interesting. He killed her with a piece of cheese.
That's how I'm going to go.
That's how old she was.
Yeah.
That's how I'll be going, guys.
I wonder how long that cheese has been sitting there waiting to be used.
Yeah. Now, was it a block of cheese or like a little?
No, it was a sling.
A little old hard piece of cheese.
Yeah.
And Maeve was... Yeah, she was bathing in a lake, and he took a slingshot and the old piece of cheese, and he slung it at her head and killed her instantly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know. What a way to go.
What drunk, like, medicine man doctor gave the autopsy? Like, come, and they're like, oh, quick, Queen Maeve is down. We have to fetch a doctor. She's not breathing. And cheese. It was cheese. It was
the cheese.
You know, yeah. Like, are you sure that wasn't cheese in your beard? No, it was. The cheese killed her. It did. It did. I'll eat it though. Thanks.
Just cheese now.
Yeah, that was a curveball on the story there. I was like, oh wow, yeah, lots of husbands, warrior princess, essentially, fairy queen. Death by cheese. Wow. Like almost biblical. Like almost biblical.
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Kind of like a sling, David and Goliath, but like dairy version.
Now, Queen Maeve kind of did have the last laugh, because there's said to be, her grave is still said to be there up in County Sligo, and she is buried in this stone cairn. I don't know if you can just walk up to it or whatever, but that's according to legend where she is. It's never been excavated or anything. And the story goes that she was buried upright and facing towards Ulster, looking at her enemies.
Oh. Eyes on them. No, that's really cool. I came across Ancient Origins has this kind of in-depth thing about the tomb of the fairy Queen Maeve, which they're the only site that I saw that kept calling her the fairy queen. I thought that was interesting. Like it wasn't, she was not always called a fairy queen, but this site did it. And yeah, it says that there's a tomb, there are these beautiful hills, and that her tomb is likely there. It dates back to the Neolithic period even, which is 10,000 to 4,500 BCE. So when you mentioned that the story that we have, the story that we've kind of given today, is in the first AD. Well, what's really cool about that is that's the oldest written record in Old Irish that we have of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's thousands of years of oral tradition before that. So what blows my mind too is this article, and like you just said, it's unexcavated, and I'm like, what the hell? Go excavate it.
What are you waiting on?
Throw a couple.
No, leave her alone. This is not the year to go around excavating evil queens.
Yeah. I know. You're gonna find the cheese that'll destroy the world. Well, no, thank you, Debbie. That was a wonderful way.
Yeah, that
of
was
sort of
fantastic.
you got it. I mean, that's Queen Maeve. It's really interesting, like seeing everything. So, like I said, we've talked about this stuff a little bit before, and I was really we talked a little bit in our little group before this, and I mentioned I was going to talk about the 4 myth cycles of Irish legend, and you weren't super familiar with those, and I wasn't beforehand either. And this is a really weird thing. I can't, Cammy, do you know if I mentioned this during Lear? I thought I mentioned this during one of our episodes. I can't remember if I have or not. I should have double checked that. Either way,
It doesn't sound familiar, but continue.
I might have just read it and then thought I said it. Well, anyway, so that's kind of the cool thing about Irish mythology is how deep back it goes. And we did a brief episode on Welsh mythology as well, and there's some kind of parallels there. I mean, that kind of makes sense. It's a very similar area, similar cultures, in that there are oral traditions that predate a lot, like, that go way deeper in this area. And then what's really cool though about the Irish myth is that it did get written in Old Irish, like that word Maeve where it kind of looks like medb or mead, and looks and sounds like mead, the drink, the alcoholic beverage. That's like a Proto-Celtic word. It's an old rooted word. So of course, like all things, Christianity comes in and kind of fudges up a lot of stuff. But it was, the good thing about it is we have some good records because of the record keeping that they did, the Christians and the priests did. We have some things that go from like the 6th to 8th to the 12th century that are really well preserved and recorded that kind of keep these lines. Like we've talked about in Norse mythology, there's basically like one dude in the 12th or 14th century, Snorri, who was just like, I'm gonna write it down. And super, it's just based off of one dude writing this stuff. In this case, we have lots of different sources, lots of different kind of corroborations. And what's really cool, the Wikipedia page talks about the chronology, the age of it all. It's kind of hard because they imagine that the priests muddled up everything, because the priests, like they did with a lot of things, and especially we've definitely talked about this with Irish legend and myth, is it kind of gets Christianized. All the pagan stuff gets taken out, or not taken out. It gets transformed, so it's a little more Christian friendly. So in Irish myth, one of the most important things is is it Tuatha De Danann?
Tua De Danann.
There we go.
Tua.
So they're Tua De Danann. They're these kind of like a key sort of like godly race of people that were kind of like
fairy people.
Yes, yeah, they were mythical people, which of course the priests kind of take over. They all just become kingly people. They're all just they were old ancient kings, and that way it kind of takes out the mysticism of it and just kind of but it still validates the culture and legend. So we have lots of examples of that. No, yeah,
even till now the sort of early 20th century, or some places in very, very rural Ireland. Not that they would, I don't want to say they'd follow the law or the words, the fairies or something like that. Yeah. But there's certain traditions in Irish culture, and just to please the fairies, it's right. Still it's a little strange. Yeah. And even now, like there's an old myth. Like, did you ever see a person who has 2 different color eyes? Red, blue, one green and one.
Yeah, heterochromia.
David Bowie.
Sorry, I apologize. I could not think of the name of the condition, but in some places in Ireland, the rumor goes those people have been touched by the fairies.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Or and a lot of things get blamed on the fairies. The crops go bad, or perhaps a child goes missing or something like that. And it's very, very old. Long before a couple of centuries ago, it could have been taken by the fairies.
Yeah, it was a great explanation. Like fairies we had an episode on fairies with Peter, and we talked about how they were very malicious. That the way that they kind of became more sweet and nice and Tinkerbell came a lot later, through kind of around the medieval era, but through the narrative writings, making them more fluffy and loving and things like that. But they went from like evil deities that ate your kids to like benevolent sort of things. But yeah, and that's so there's going the Irish folklore, the Irish literature, we have strong evidence of it kind of predating, time, essentially. So it has these deep roots, and Christianity, of course, kind of came in. It was a good and a bad thing because they wrote down so much, so we have such a great source of all the stories now. And you know, today we can kind of look and see what probably was changed. But the bad thing is yeah, a lot of things kind of were sort of made to fit sort of a better narrative. But it's cool. The 4 cycles are really nice. I wish more like mythological or myths focuses did this, like Greek and Roman, because it levels them into like eras. It's almost like a chronology. I tried to look up the history of the 4 cycles when they started getting used. I don't know. I couldn't find it. I have to dig like a lot deeper. But the 4 myths are there's the first one's called Myth. Go figure. The second one's called the Ulster cycle, and that's where the roots of Cuchulainn and Maeve come from. So that it's like this time period is when these events happened. yeah, and
proper.
There's different like themes to each myth. So after the Ulster cycle is the Fenian cycle, which was about the Fianna people, the like who are kind of like nomadic outlaws. Fianna people, like nomadic outlaws. And the last cycle is the king or historical cycle. And this really just focused on the kings of the areas, their lineages. And I think this was, at this point, it was more recorded in the medieval era. And when that was really more important, to write down your kingship, write down why are you king? What roots do you have? What godly connections do you have to being the king of this land? That was really important at that time period. So it's really cool though. But it still kept a lot of the themes of the 5 invasions. There were 5 great invasions of Ireland, how important they were and stuff like that. And 6 invasions. Sorry, the first 5 were for otherworldly beings. The last ones were for these people called the Milesians. But anyway, so that's kind of Irish myth in a bit of a nutshell. And the 4 cycles kind of help tell you when things happened. Christianity, of course, kind of came in. It did change a lot of things, but as we talk, I remember the Banshee episode really clearly. Like, even though, you know, people can be devout Christians, they still like there's still this feeling of the like. I talked about it before. I'm a big fan of Bernard Cornwell's books, and he talks a lot about he did books on King Arthur, he did books on 9th century England and stuff like that, and he'll always have an Irish character in it. And especially in his Last Kingdom books, the Irish character in that, his name's Finan. He's a devout Christian, but he's also like he talks about the old magic of Ireland, how it's covered in old magic, very deep. So even no matter how Christian they are, you're still gonna have a druid. You're still gonna listen to them. You're still gonna like respect the ancient traditions because of how scared you are of things like fairies eating your kids when you're not looking. So that's just a little fun way. But yeah, the craziest thing about Maeve to me though is her birth or her tomb could very well be just sitting in this area that dates back. She could have been a real queen in the Neolithic period, and her tomb could just be a couple like 6,000 years old sitting there, saying "Do not disturb."
Well, you think about Newgrange. That's how many as well? That's what, was it 5,000-6,000 years old? There's ancient cairns and burials and everything in Ireland.
Yeah. And I skipped over the last thing I'll talk about, which this is really cool, and we've discussed this a lot. The concept of euhemerism, where myth is created to explain history. So we've discussed it on our Medusa episode. I think is when we first really brought it up, where there's a theory that the whole story of Medusa was this temple that worshipped gorgons, or Medusa was attacked, and then that attacking kind of became a myth. Well, anyway, a lot of Irish myth is explained in that way, and they think, or one theory is there's this idea in Irish myth of the sovereignty goddess. So in a lot of ways, when a king becomes a king, he marries the land that he's becoming a king over, and it's a very like a deep connection. Now, Wikipedia does mention a literal marriage and communion with a horse. that some kings did, apparently. I won't go super deep in that. You can check out Wikipedia for more on that. But they think that
I'm going to have to call my secondary school history teacher and fact
Yeah.
check these things.
Yes, no, please ask your secondary school teacher about that, please. But it was this idea, Queen Maeve, her legends. She had several husbands. She went through a lot of husbands, and she was at this time too. It parallels with the idea of sort of the earth, a Mother Earth kind of thing. The earth giving you, providing in a motherly way. And also like punishing you in a way, like with bad crops and things like that. And so there's the idea of the sovereignty goddess is that a king it personifies the territory. So there's this idea that Queen Maeve is sort of a euhemeristic example of this, where the king has to respect the land, treat the land well, marry the land. What he's doing is he's marrying Queen Maeve in that regard. So there isn't too much on that. It's a little section on Wikipedia, and it's also kind of mentioned in some of our other sources, or that I had, like Celtic Life, International.com, and Ancient Origins kind of briefly sort of talk about these things as well. But that was the last kind of fun thing that I saw, was this kind of encompassing euhemeristic idea of marrying the land, and Queen Maeve being a personification of the land that you do marry and things like that. So I will say, Cammy, I know for a fact in the Banshee episode and in Children of Lear, we use the website. I think it's CelticWeddingRings.com.
Yes.
They have a huge lore. They did not help me out this time. I'm very disappointed.
Oh no!
They did not have a Queen Maeve section that I could
Did you
find.
at least buy a ring?
No, unfortunately not. But feel free to check them out. And that's doing my search on this. It's so funny, Debbie. I don't know if it comes across to you, but like whenever we do our Googling, on research, you'll find so many websites where they'll sell a product, and it's an or it's a blog, and it's just like they'll throw in like, hey, we sell Irish flags. Here's our Irish complete history section. And that CelticWeddingRings.com, where you can buy like $100 beautiful bands. They've just got this like dude, they've got a resident historian just writing blog posts about Irish myth. It's just really funny. It's like you have to have it, how it's super ingrained to it.
We're very thorough about these things. Like,
yeah.
If you're, the thing is in Ireland, as you know, that there's a story, there's a myth, there's a legend behind everything. Even your Celtic wedding bands, as you guys would call them, clatter rings. There's like a story behind that one as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. There's I think it was named after the king's daughter, Clada, who would have been Connacht as well. It was in Galway, and she was apparently staring out to sea and was washed away by the sea. And so he was so heartbroken. He made a Clada ring for her. I think that is the right one. Please do not quote me if I am incorrect.
Well, it's right now. That's what myth is.
Yeah, I mean,
you're Irish. You just gave us a myth. Here's the Mythstorie original Irish myth. Present at TM.
There you go. There's a load of them.
Debbie, did you want to mention, your sources and that book that you were recommending?
Well, this is just, it's an old book I have. This thing will be Lady Gregory's Complete Irish Mythology, with a preface by W.B. Yeats.
Oh, good old Yeats.
Highly doubt.
I had to study him.
He's amazing. Yeah. He would be, there's so much history about him.
Yeah.
That was Cammy. He makes a tie-in with the Chancing Your Arm story, where that's for another night, I think.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and even though Cammy reminded me. So Debbie was one who suggested a myth or a story for our number 2 of the Suburban Legends. So that was another thing we have to thank her for, other than being on today's episode.
Yes, thank you.
Supplying us material. So excellent. Well, guys, this was a wonderful discussion, a thorough discussion on Irish myth that I've really loved. And there's a ton there that we can come back to as well. But I think we've covered just about everything. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Remember to hit us up on Facebook, and if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to hear or what we missed, please let us know there. You can also hit us up on YouTube, where you can watch us looking at each other, talking about how hard it is to pronounce these words. Luckily, that's a phone number.
Yeah,
but
any questions, just send them directly.
yeah,
We should have a
If you any questions
competition
about
of all
Ireland-
of your poor reviewers trying to pronounce these words. God love them.
Oh wow,
That
that
would
would
be
be
good.
great. Yeah, they get a free face mask or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, with an Irish flag on it or something.
yeah. That's excellent. Well, Cammy, thanks as always for being on the
Thank
show.
you, Bryant.
And Debbie, thank you so much. This was really special.
Yeah,
and
we appreciate you coming
Yeah,
on.
down.
You did
Yeah.
great.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh, thank you. I was so nervous.
No, it was excellent. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Oh.